and welcome to the simulation competition. This is a tutorial and it's designed to give you an overview of how to run your restaurants and meeting and event space within your hotel. This will show you how the simulation operates, how to use different screens within the simulated environment. You've been provided a URL by your instructor, as well as a leader access code or a spectator code. That should bring you, the URL should bring you actually to what you're looking at right now. And then you can put in your leader access code or your spectator code. That will log you in, and you will find yourself at the home page of your hotel, which is going to be based all on restaurants and meeting and event planning space. So let's do that, and this is the next page that should show up once you log in. And if you look here, it says hello and here's how to begin. So it's telling you right away to go to the information tab, and all your tabs are located here at the top. Okay, and then you would go, after you look at your information, I highly recommend to actually print this out, but I understand we are in a very digital age, so what I would do is maybe save them so you don't have to go back and forth. And then you would go to the make decisions or forecast, in a sense, to figure out what your revenue would be for the next month. And then after that, once you make your operating decisions, you can review your results. And you review results after the instructor cycles, or basically cycles for the month. So just a few things here I want you to keep in mind is that the premise is that you are taking over as a general manager for underperforming restaurants and meeting and event planning space. Right? This hotel with the restaurants and meeting and event planning space is in your region, right? The Lehigh Valley, and the hotel has been underperforming, and hence so have the restaurants and the meeting and event planning space. And you've been tasked as the new general manager to take it over and bring it to profit and beyond. So naturally, probably the first thing that you want to do is learn a little bit about your restaurants and meeting and event planning space. So your first instruction here, like I said, is to go to the information tab to learn about the restaurants and that meeting and event planning space. The markets, maximum pricing, the average cost of meals, and the past performance. You can click on the information tag, and it's going to bring you to a library of different information. And all the documents are in PDF form. And you can see all these documents. Like I said, if you can print them, print them. If not, I highly recommend them to save them, because you can't keep that page up while you make the decisions. So if you save them or click on them and have them there, it's going to help you tremendously. We will say that later for Office 365. Alright, so continuing on here, the majority of the documents will remain in the simulation for the duration of the competition. But certainly, as I mentioned, if you wish to print them, you certainly can. These documents are there to give you a guideline as to past performance, current situation, and a little glimpse into the future. It's highly advised to start here so you can really sort of frame your plan and have an idea of what's happened previously and get an idea of what responsibilities to expect and how you can move forward and make your decisions. So I'm just going to bring up a few of these to assist you throughout this tutorial. This is food and beverage performance and price points. This is your maximum pricing with your sensitivity. And I'm also going to bring up your occupancy and marketing mix. basically tells you more about your hotel here and who is basically staying at your hotel. And you can see your occupancy for weekday, weekend. Okay. Alright, so I am going to set this up that we are at the information tab. We kind of have the ones open that we're going to need throughout this decision aspect. I highly recommend you read all of these because what we're going to be doing is basically forecasting and trying to estimate what our revenue is going to be like for the next month. And if you can see up here says January year 1, that's when you know where you are. Your instructor is going to cycle monthly, and their next cycle then would be, when you're making new decisions, would be February year 1. Then after that, March year 1, etc. The other thing I want to make sure that you know that there is, in the sense that you are competitive with other hotels that are in this simulation, and in order to be successful, you definitely want to make sure that you are reading some of the forecasted material and some of the past decisions. Right? And like I said, in the simulation, there is competition between other hotels, so their decisions play a part also on how your decisions affect the marketplace. The biggest thing that we're looking for is we want to get more covers, in a sense, and covers equal revenue. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go to the Make Decision tab then after Information. And if you go to your Make Decision tab and you click on Outlet Forecast and Pricing, okay, you're going to see this information pop up, or the screen pop up. And the one thing I'd like to share is a little bit of advice. People often ask, should we make all these operating decisions in the order that they appear? So if you look under Make Decisions, it's Outlet Forecast and Pricing, Catering Forecast, Cost of Goods, Refurbishment, Facilities, Staffing, Marketing, and Advertising. So the answer is yes. You want to actually do these in order, and it's for a couple of reasons. The first is to make sense that it would make sense that obviously you want to make some decisions first about how many covers you're expecting, and then you would do the decisions for staffing. So this goes through some of our cover capture rates, and then you see staffing's at the very bottom, because then we would maybe have to increase our staffing depending on our forecasting. So you wouldn't really try to staff a restaurant before you know how many covers you're going to have, and figure out how much business you're intending to have on a particular weekend or weekday. And also, you aren't sure how much you're going to spend on marketing and advertising if you don't have a sense of estimated revenue. And we get into that a little later of how you want to basically spend on and estimate and spend on your marketing and advertising. It all has to do with how many covers you're expecting to get in. So knowing that you absolutely do want to work through these decisions in the order in which you see them, we're going to go through each decision page one by one just to give you a little bit of idea of what's expected and what's required on each page. I'm also going to show you some of the ways that different pages work into each other, and that's another reason why doing this in order is highly recommended. So let's begin with the Outlet Forecast Pricing, and you can see that for January year 1. Now you are going to be operating your restaurants and meeting and events planning space on that monthly basis. As stated, your instructor will cycle or advance to the next month. Each participant will be informed when all decisions must be made. And once your instructor cycles to the next month, you cannot make any changes to the previous month. The simulation will automatically replicate your decisions and pass it on and show you results for February then, and so forth. So let's look at the Outlook Forecast and Pricing page. And on this page, there's already some numbers here at the top. So it's telling us that we sold 6,538 rooms, or for our forecast. That's our forecast, sorry. And then we also look at our double occupancy. So out of those rooms, 21% are double occupied. So that's giving a total residence of 7,910. This will help us move forward because it's telling us that we have 7,910 people that are going to be in the hotel for that month. So once again, you're looking at this as a forecasted aspect. How many are you going to capture out of this forecasted amount for your resident cover capture and your non-resident cover capture, excuse me. And then you also we have one restaurant that we're looking at right now, and that's breakfast, that serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you want to keep in mind that you want to get your fair share of individuals. You are really looking at how to get these covers into the restaurants and event space. And as you can see, we have this forecasted for people who are staying, okay? And we have to figure out then the non-resident cover capture. This goes back then to what we're looking at on, if we can say our weekend occupancy or day occupancy, but also with, if you go to your food and beverage performance and price points, you can see here that tells you that the monthly average last year is that you got 384 people for breakfast for non-resident. And here's that information here. Okay, so once again, it's really important to go to your information section and know how many people that you capture from the following year. And like I said, you want to keep in mind that non-resident covers. You want to get visitors maybe that are staying at other hotels to come and eat at your restaurants. Maybe get them, locals to come to your bar. So all that is taken into respect. And like I said, make sure you look at your past covers numbers that I just showed you. And you then are going to forecast about the number of people you feel you're going to be able to capture. And if you look at, we have breakfast, lunch, dinner. We have our non-residents covers, as I said before. Are they staying at competitor hotels and coming to eat at your hotel? Do you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner event covers? Do you have conferences, weddings, social events, people that aren't staying over at your hotel but eating a meal? So like I said, once we get that information and look at it, and we have it all accessible to us through, once again, if we scroll up here, your information tab, and that I just showed you. Okay, so our food and beverage performance and price points. And once you look at that, you're going to make your decisions, and you have to decide as a group, or if you're doing this individually, what is your strategy? And ultimately, how are you going to bring more people into your restaurant or use your meeting and event planning space? And so once you come up with your strategy, you want to kind of follow through with that. You want to try to get your cover capture rates up. You also want to decide what the food check average is for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you look here, it says food check average. Okay. And once again, if we go to our food and beverage performance, you can look here, and it tells us our check average. Okay, and it's telling us our price ranges. So that information, once again, is provided. You can increase, decrease them. Same thing with your drink prices. And if you, once again, go back to what we were looking at, it's telling that our average check was about $6. Okay, so that is actually on there also. The one thing that I did want to state is that when we are looking at our beverage sales mix and our drink prices, we are only looking at beer, wine, and liquor here. Okay, not coffee, not tea, and not the non-alcoholic aspect. Okay, so once you come up with that strategy, you're going to make your changes and update these decisions on this page. And the biggest thing is after you're doing this, you always want to make sure that you update and recalculate. And if you see here the sales mix, they already have this in for you, that 33% of your sales is actually beer, 33% is wine, liquor. Once again, this is what is tabulated for you. You can change these, but you need to put in your beverage covers here. So how many, this is the sales mix, but then how many people are drinking during breakfast, all right? How many people are drinking during lunch, and how many people are drinking during dinner. So that's where you have to put in that information. The other thing I wanted to mention was your pricing. You just want to be sensitive with this because we do have a maximum and minimum pricing when we look, in a sense. So this is our sensitivity report that's also provided for you. And it's saying in the full service restaurant, which is the only one that we have right now, because you can choose to add in a theme restaurant as you move on, or room service, or a lobby bar. And if you see, they're saying that this is the highest you can go, is $25 for breakfast, $10 for beer. But as we saw from our last thing, is that it seems like the average drink cost is $6, so 10 is definitely pretty high. So really think about this, and once again, this is maximum pricing. I'm telling you flat out, if you do $25 or $26 for breakfast, you are not going to have many people eating at your full service restaurant for breakfast. Okay, let's go back here and look at this. The one thing that's going to happen then is after you type in everything, you want to do update and recalculate. And you're actually going to see your total food revenue pop up, your total beverage revenue, and your total outlet revenue. All right. Why is this important? Is because, once again, we can actually see from past performance in our information tab of how much we made in revenue last year. So you don't want to totally be out of the ballpark with this, and if you are, you're going to have to go back and kind of change your numbers. Or if you're too low from what you made last year. But keep in mind, this is only our restaurant, our full service restaurant. We didn't even get to our catering events or our space available. So this is going to give you an amount based on your food and beverage. And once again, if we go back to our performance here, one of the next things we're going to do is our meeting and event planning covers. Okay? So that's an important part, and here's your revenue. If you look, beverage revenue, okay, that's an average for the month, and here's your total food revenue average. So these numbers are important because you obviously want to add them up as you go through your simulation to figure out how much you made with total food and beverage revenue. Always make sure you update and recalculate, okay? And you actually get this inputs updated successfully when you do that. The other thing before I move on that I wanted to show you is that we have great things here to assist you throughout your process. Anytime you see an item underlined with a dotted line, you can hover over that and it will give you a definition. So room sold forecast, the estimated guest room sold this month. I can go to food check average, the average spent per cover, so per guest for food. So this will help you out tremendously. The other fantastic thing we have here is the help button. And my mouse left me, there it is. If you go to your help button, it'll tell you what's happening on this page, but then there's also a little video. The videos are not long. I highly recommend to watch them. 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes less, but it'll help you introduce you to what is going on then in this if you're a little confused. And don't be afraid to reach out to your instructor. Okay, so get out of help here, and we're going to go to our next aspect for make decisions. We're going to go to the catering forecast and pricing. So once again, since this is a food and beverage class, you're really looking at how to get covers into your full service restaurant and how to get covers driven into your catering. Then after this month, you actually have the right or even financial means to add in different outlets, and we'll see that as we continue on. But once again, if you look here for our catering and forecast and pricing, all of our covers were listed under our food and beverage performance. Okay, so it's telling us our meeting and event covers, right? And that's an estimated for last year per month. Okay, so this is an average, could be higher, could be lower. So that information is there for you. So it says that we had how many we had for breakfast, lunch, dinner, refreshments, and then our total food costs. So if we're going to our catering, we can put our covers. We can also do a price per cover. And once again, this goes with the sensitivity of the market. So if we go back on here and we see our catering price sensitivity, it's telling us that the maximum, the highest price you can charge is $75 for a half-day package. Okay? Once again, you have to think about your strategy with this. Are you going to do what we know in marketing is marketing penetration, start low and build higher? Are you going to start as a higher class element as a new GM? So maybe you're going to go for $65. You need to think about your strategy as you continue this. So you would add this information in, and then you would, that also gives you an aspect here for your room rental per cover. So how much are you charging for room rentals? Some people charge nothing because they waive it because you're spending so much on food and beverage. Other people will charge $25 to $100 per head. It all depends, once again, on your strategy and what your team decides. And if you look here, you have your MICE lunch, MICE dinner, okay? So your meetings, incentives, you have your events, and then your convention. Sorry, I lost my C. So your MICE lunch and your MICE dinner. And once again, when you see these WD and WE, right, this is your weekday, okay, and your weekend. Think about price sensitivity during those time periods and what we do. So once again, you have, it's going to tell you your total covers and add everything up once you press update and recalculate. Your total meeting revenue, your total event revenue, and then it's going to go total catering revenue, right? So that's going to be your total catering revenue, and the last one we did our full service, right, restaurant revenue. And I'm just going to show you one thing. I'm just going to put in 50 covers here, and I'm going to go to cost of goods. Okay, did this on purpose. This is set up to assist you that if you've made all these changes and added in your numbers and you forget to update and recalculate, this is here for you to remind you. Okay, we obviously want to save any changes. Okay, so anytime you do that, definitely do an update and recalculate. As of for me, I'm not going to save any changes in this, and I'm going to put that back to 0. Okay, but I will just update and calculate so we can move on. The next thing we have is cost of goods. Cost of goods in this, just thinking as food cost. And as you've learned through the program, food cost average is usually 30%, but we can go from 28 to 32. Some cases lower, some cases higher. But like I said, our average is about 30. Beverages, once again, beverages are much lower than food costs. And when we look at our beverages, we want to think maybe between 18 to 22%. And we look at this, when you look at any types of costs, is you have to figure out how much you plan on making. So if I say that my food costs me 30% in the full service restaurant, I'm only making 60% of that then once I sell it. So once again, this goes with strategy. High-end places sometimes have up to 42% food costs, but they get their money back because they're charging more than for the end product. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to state about this. Just be cautious too with meeting and event planning. Think about it in a bulk sense. So full service restaurant with a la carte, your food cost is going to be a little higher because it's harder to say how many people are going to get the steak dish on a night. Right? You can estimate, but you don't really know, and you have inventory to feed people. But if you have set meetings and set events, you know that 30 people are in that meeting, and let's say 28 of them are getting the steaks and 2 are vegetarians. So you're able to manage your food costs a little bit more. So your food cost and your beverage cost should be slightly lower when you're looking at meetings and events. And we will go on to the next here, refurbishment. Something fantastic that we have is that we have available funds. So we have $1.5 million. And what we can do here is an outlet relaunch, soft goods redo, or renovations. You have these funds available. Just be careful of how you spend them, but don't be too frugal. Depending on how other people are making their decisions in this simulation, if they're doing a soft goods redo and you decide not to do it until the 5-month period, you then have to wait 2 more months for this to be completed, so you might already be out of the running. So really look into these and try to figure out where you're making money, where you're not. So in February, March, April, you're really going to get some numbers that come in to say what you have to drive covers to. So if your full service restaurant is not doing well with non-residents, maybe you need an outlet relaunch, or maybe you need 100% renovation. But your meeting event planning space is doing fantastic. Maybe let it go then for that month. So you're going to look at your numbers and decide that once you hit February, March, and April. And we'll do another tutorial then to kind of look to see how everybody is doing. So you can elect into this, but once again, keep in mind it tells you how long each one will take. So this will not even hit your bottom line to a certain point. Okay? Another thing that we have is facilities. Right now, everybody's on the same playing field, everybody's level. Everyone has $1.5 million to put into any renovations or etc. And the other thing that everybody has is all the groups started with a full service restaurant and meeting event planning space. You now can choose as a group or an individual that you can elect into basically putting a capital investment, right, into maybe opening a theme restaurant, doing room service, lobby bar, theme bar, cafe, and mini bar. So you are actually going to see that your available funds here goes with your available funds in your refurbishment. They share that. So that this number, actually once you updated it from the last thing, is going to tell you how much money you have to do additional things. Right, so once again, think about what you want to do for your strategy. Think about if you want to be mid-scale, upper scale, 100% full service, and that's going to go into then what you elect to do and how much of that capital investment is going to come out. All right, and I'm going to go into staffing. Right, so staffing is a little unique here. What the simulation does for you is it actually already sets you up with a staffing guide. So it's telling us here, and once again if we hover over it, right, this is basically the optimal amount we need to have a great delivery. So this is our staff standards. They are multiplied by the hotel's forecast. You want to pay attention because depending on what you add on, if you add in a new aspect, these numbers can change, these staffing guides. And once again, if you want to be a top of the line, you might want to have 20 waiters, but basically telling us you only need 15 for the optimal service. So that's a really important aspect to think about. And this one, you can see, this is 100% in line with the staffing guide. And then if you look here, we have a 33 and 41, so we're high here. It's up to you if you want to push them back, or if your strategy is to have more or less. The other thing here is that you have elected salaries and wages. And if you look here, they kind of gave you the medium you can choose. This is the recommended salary wages gauge, and they already put in for you, this is halfway between 6,000 and 9,000. Once again, you can choose the changes and bump it. Taxes and benefits, they already have for you. And then you have training options and incentive options. Rule of thumb is that there should be 2% given for training based on the salary. Okay? And this is per person. It's going to do the math for you. So, if you take, let's see here, let me get my calculator out. If we are doing 7,500 and we're doing 2% of that, it's telling us that we should have $150 of training per person. And if you choose to do 3%, it would be $225. And then you could also elect in the incentives. I highly recommend that. If you basically go over incentives here, it goes with sales. So when sales go up, basically there'll be an extra pay to the director of food and beverage or the executive chef. Don't forget, if you choose to do this and opt in, you have to click your elected incentives, okay? And then it's going to show up here the estimated incentive amount once again, come down and go update. Then our marketing and advertising. Once again, when we are actually at marketing and advertising, there's another little rule of thumb, and this is why I kept on saying look at your revenue for catering, look at your revenue for your full service restaurant. Basically, when we look at anything with the marketing, you want to maybe spend 8% of your total revenue then on marketing. And that is, once again, you have to go back and look at your total amount for your revenue and figure out what you should spend it on. And once you start getting your reports are going to show you that maybe you're not getting a lot of resident capture, so you might want to spend some additional money on in-house collateral or in-house electronic for that advertising. Or when people are staying, then you might want to do something like a booking website. So all these you can elect to do, and just think about when you are looking to do anything with marketing, maybe 8% then, and sometimes you can go high as 17% of that overall revenue. And once again, don't forget, you would come down here and do update. And this is going to tell you then, once you update, and it's fantastic, all right, how much you spent, etc., then it's going to actually tell you what percentage of that forecasted revenue you're using. So if you are using 40% of your forecasted revenue, ouch, you want to go back and maybe look at what you have to take away. And then that basically wraps up our make decisions. You will have reports then. Right now you don't have any available because there wasn't anything made, okay, any decisions made. But once you have your reports aspect, you can look here. It's going to tell you where you sit and where you are scored with the other competitors. It actually gives you some competitor pricing. It does not tell you who's running whose hotel, but you get an idea then of what the competitors are charging in certain aspects. So all this information will be available to you, and we'll do another tutorial then on how to read it. And then you can also do some trends here. It'll have some market indexes. Once again, we don't have anything available until after we do January. And then finally, we have communicate. You can actually send a message here to your instructor. Sometimes your instructor will ask you to do an RFP. So you would actually have to say, this is a request for proposal for catering an event of 50 people, and we'd like to do this at $50 a head. And they can reword that to you. So here's a way to communicate with your instructor, and they will get something saying that they do have a message. So right now that basically wraps up my tutorial. I just wanted to go over everything. Your make decisions are important, but you need this information tab to do that. And then once you pass January and you cycle to February, which your instructor will do and give you that time period, all these reports are going to be available to you, and you're going to see how you're doing competitively, and maybe if you are didn't get a profit or did get a, make a profit. All this is going to be squared away for you. And so we'll go over those reports and trends later on. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and